Good morning, everyone. Hi there, good morning. Welcome to Europeana 2025. Please find your seats. We're so happy to have you here today in this beautiful museum, in this beautiful place. I hope it isn't raining outside anymore. It was when I came in, so let's hope that the weather clears up a bit. My name is Jolan Weitz. I'll be your Master of Ceremonies for today. I work at Europeana as a collections editor, and I really want to warmly welcome you to today's conference, both the people in the room and the people online. We have a lot of people joining us from all over the world, so lovely to see you all joining us online. I'm sorry there was a little bit of a delay, but I hope you got comfortable and are ready to start now. So, Europeana 2025, lots of excitement in the room, lovely. This conference is held under the patronage of the Polish presidency of the Council of the EU, and we're very thankful for the strong partnership we have with the Ministry of Culture and the National Heritage of Poland, the National Institute of Cultural Heritage, and of course the POLIN Museum, which is our host today, which we also want to warmly thank. Together we've been shaping this conference for the past weeks and months, and we're very excited to finally be able to share it with you today. For the people joining us in person, I hope you can enjoy and take some time to walk through this stunning award-winning, I hear, venue, which is in the heart of Warsaw. And for the people online, we're prepared to also give you an equally engaging and thoughtful program without a buffet or lunch given to you. I'm sorry, you'll have to make sure you get that yourself. So, before we dive in, a couple of words about this event. What makes this conference so special is that it's completely co-created by the sector for the sector. We received more than 100 proposals after an open call, showing that we really have a lot of interest for people not only to join this conference, but to also have their voices be heard. Now we have specially curated for you over 35 sessions and over 100 speakers over the next 2 days. This year's conference themes are threefold: preserve, protect, and reuse. I will let the other speakers explain exactly what we mean with that and what the topics are that underlie these themes, but let's keep those in mind over the next few days. So, as I always have to do at the start of a conference, we have a little bit of housekeeping. First off is trying to see if this clicker works, and it does, that's great. At every Europeana conference, we have inclusive engagement guidelines. These make sure that we all listen to each other with an open mind. We make sure that we're curious. We listen to other people in the same way that we want to be heard. This is all to make sure that we all feel safe, happy, in a spirit of collaboration and mutual understanding. So please take a moment to look at the guidelines. They will also be posted online. And if at any point you feel like you want to flag something to anyone from staff, or if you feel that a line has been crossed, the people from Europeana are wearing a badge with Europeana Foundation at the bottom, so you can always have a chat with them if needed. Then, of course, we're also active on social media, and we hope that you are too. Here are some of the hashtags that you can use. Please get in touch with us. Talk to each other online, in the room. This really is an event not only to listen to speakers, but to also build your network, mingle, get to know other people from the sector, and also learn a lot of things. I hear we have a lot of workshops, tutorials, ways to build your skills and take part in capacity building. We're using, especially for the people online, but also in the room, we're using a new conference software called Zoho Backstage. We hope that you had little to no issues with that. If you do, please also talk to one of our organizers here or talk to someone in the chat if you are online and are having any issues. Another thing I can announce that I'm very happy about is that you won't only be able to see this auditorium in the POLIN Museum. If you want to visit the actual exhibition, you can get free entrance for the rest of the week if you show your badge to the cash register at the entrance. So you walk in, and then on your left there's a cash register. If you show your badge to them, you can get a free ticket for the day. And I think up until Saturday, you can come and visit the museum. You can also walk out of the museum and then later in the day walk back in to continue your visit if you'd like. So I would very much recommend you do so. Right, let's get on to the program. I think I have talked enough. We have some lovely first speakers to welcome you today and to set the stage. And I'm very happy to, as our first speaker, introduce to you the Undersecretary of State at the Ministry of Cultural and National Heritage in Poland, Mr. Sławomir Rogowski. Please welcome him to the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, welcome in Warsaw. We appreciate very much your coming to our wonderful time. We appreciate your coming to this extraordinary place, POLIN Museum. On behalf of the Minister of Culture and National Heritage of the Republic of Poland, Mrs. Hanna Wróblewska, and also personally, I warmly welcome you to Conference European 2025 Preserve, Protect, Reuse, organized by the European Foundation in collaboration with the Ministry of Culture and National Heritage, the National Institute of Cultural Heritage, and the POLIN Museum of the History of Polish Jews. It's a great honor to welcome representatives of the European Commission, ministries, cultural institutions, and experts from across Europe. Over the next 2 days, we will share knowledge and build networks, all to strengthen our collective efforts to protect, promote, and expand access to cultural heritage in the digital area, digital age. The spirit of cooperation, solidarity, and shared responsibility is also reflected in Poland's cadency motto for the UNESCO World Heritage Committee: Unit for the protection of heritage. This conference is an excellent opportunity to develop the ideas and inspire joint actions for the protection and preservation of cultural heritage in the European level. I sincerely thank all the institutions involved in making this event happen: the European Foundation for taking the initiative and great professionalism, the National Institute of Cultural Heritage for the organizational and expert contribution, and the POLIN Museum for hosting us so generously and for the important contribution to the content of this event. The conference takes place at a significant moment during the Polish presidency of the Council of the European Union. Its guiding motto is Security Europe. In light of the war in Ukraine and rising geopolitical tensions, this is a call to strengthen security in various dimensions. For the cultural sector, it is an appeal for increasing care for heritage, its protection, sustainable preservation, and fostering cooperation across borders. The European Conference reflects the priorities by focusing on safeguarding digital heritage, cooperation, and advancing a common European data space for cultural heritage, which ensures cross-border accesses to digital collections and foster collaboration among cultural institutions. Poland remains committed to increasing both the availability and quality of shared cultural data. Poland has supported the European initiative from the beginning. We are proud to be among the most active providers of digital contents to this platform, thanks to the efforts of many institutions, especially the Digital Libraries Federation, coordinated by the Poznań Supercomputing and Networking Center. As the national aggregator, we have already made over 3.6 million records available. We are also pleased that the center is also actively involved in the implementation of the data space. We support the development of the common European data space for cultural heritage, convenience that only by acting together can we effectively protect and enhance European heritage for the benefit of both present and future generations. I wish you fruitful discussion, inspiring meetings, and a memorable stay in Warsaw. Have a nice time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Undersecretary of State, Mr. Rogowski. Next up, we have another warm welcome, this time coming to us digitally with a video by Ivo Volman. He is Director of Data at DG CONNECT of the European Commission, and he would also like to wish you a warm welcome to the Europeana conference.
Dear Secretary of State, dear ladies and gentlemen, I would like to start by thanking our hosts, the Ministry of Culture and National Heritage of Poland, the National Institute of Cultural Heritage, the Poland Museum of the History of Polish Jews, and the Europeana team for organizing this important event. This year, it focuses on a crucial theme. The Europeana initiative has been supported by the European Commission, European and national policymakers, and the cultural heritage community for the past 18 years. It's about safeguarding our cultural heritage and making it future-proof. And we have all been supporting the digital transformation of the cultural heritage sector and the digitization of artifacts, monuments, and sites of historical and cultural importance. As a result, we now have more than 60 million high-quality digital assets and 3D models. They come from 3,800 cultural heritage institutions, and they're available in the data space for cultural heritage, thanks to your unwavering support and efforts. However, today we must be able to mitigate and tackle significant risks and issues arising from the fast evolving global landscape. Climate disasters, armed conflicts, targeted sabotage, and economic uncertainties. More needs to be done. We need to do more to protect and preserve, much more in these worrying times. Taking decisive steps in this direction is not only important, it's really vital for us as responsible custodians of our cultural heritage. It's our duty towards present and future generations. At the same time, we can further promote innovation by looking at new ways of protecting, preserving, and reusing cultural heritage data. Technologies such as artificial intelligence are game changers. They will help to tackle some of the most pressing issues of our society. In the area of cultural heritage, they will contribute to the digitizing, preserving, and advancing research in cultural heritage. 3D technologies allow for non-destructive analysis and visualization of heritage assets. They offer crucial information for the restoration and conservation of monuments and sites under threat, or that have already been badly damaged. Beyond preservation, evolving technologies like AI, 3D, data technologies, or virtual worlds allow to bring innovation and create new markets and avenues of growth for our European industries, such as the gaming sector, such as tourism, such as education. And the Europeana initiative is the centerpiece of all these efforts. Now, this conference is also going to look into security aspects, and rightly so. A few weeks ago, the Commission presented its new European Preparedness Union strategy. It's not only natural disasters that put our heritage at risk, from the fire in Notre Dame to the floodings in Valencia. It's also about hybrid attacks with the goal of destabilizing the European economy and democracies, including meddling in elections or a full-fledged war in Ukraine. The Preparedness Union strategy makes it clear that Europe needs to be proactive rather than reactive. We need to have a common crisis management toolbox, and we must increase our awareness and flexibility to respond. For cultural heritage, this means we must have a digital resilient infrastructure and robust plans for preserving information systems and digital assets. This will protect our heritage and information in the case of cyber attacks, physical attacks, or natural disasters. Now, this is unfortunately the new reality within which we have to operate. To conclude this message, I would like to thank you again for creating the space for discussing this critical issue, which is affecting all parts of Europe and all our industrial and societal sectors, including cultural heritage. We have no choice but to master technology so we can accelerate digitization efforts, so we can explore structured and sustainable solutions for the long-term digital preservation of our heritage, both digitized and born digital heritage. And we must ensure that we are always prepared. Thank you very much, and I wish you a very productive conference.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ivo Volman. I hope that you're maybe online watching this so you can hear your applause as well, or maybe you'll join us online tomorrow. DG Connect is digital but also physical, because we have a representative of DG Connect available with us physically today. I am very happy to introduce to you Rehana Schwinninger-Ladak. She's head of unit at DG Connect. Welcome. I will leave the stage to you. Let's welcome her.
Dear Undersecretary of State, dear directors of the Museum and of the Institute of Cultural Heritage, dear presidency team, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to all of you online and here in such a beautiful, indeed, and meaningful and inspiring space, which exemplifies how the past can inspire contemporary forms of art and architecture. Let me start by remembering an extraordinary Polish and European personality. Maria Skłodowska, later Marie Skłodowska-Curie. She was a pioneer and a genius in science, the only person ever awarded with 2 Nobel Prizes in different fields, chemistry and science. Even though she left the so-called Russian Empire at the time, she always preserved her Polish heritage and identity, teaching the language to her daughters in Paris and naming the first chemical element she discovered, polonium, after her motherland. She did it without generative AI. She did it without supercomputers. She did it without an iPhone, even without the internet. Marie Curie developed new techniques to handle radioactive matter and got new uses from it. Our cultural heritage also deserves innovative treatment to get the most of it, as well as careful and continuous preservation. Preserve, protect, reuse is the theme of this conference. My director, Ivo Volman, focused on protection and preparedness. Let me address preservation and reuse, two subjects that are very close to my priorities. Maria Skłodowska-Curie was always careful in handling and preserving original research materials and scientific artifacts, such as lab notes, not only for her own use, but also for preserving her scientific legacy for future generations. Like her, we must work on the long-term digital preservation for digitized assets and born digital materials such as databases, metadata, paradata, catalogs, and others. The overall policy at European level is the recommendation for a common European data space, which sets overarching objectives, goalposts, recommendation, and targets for member states. And if you allow me, I will read you this bit from the recommendation, which says, digitization does not entail digital preservation by default. To ensure access to the digitized assets, in the long term, member states need to carefully plan and carry out the digital preservation of their assets. We have just done the review of the first 2 years of implementation of this recommendation, which started in 21, and we have published the review of the recommendation. It is online. I really recommend you warmly to go and consult it. The conclusion is simple. We have a lot of work to do. The road ahead is long. We need member states to define comprehensive and forward-looking national digital strategies that include digital preservation. And here I would like to congratulate Poland, the Undersecretary of State, for all the efforts that it is doing. You exemplify the effort that needs to be done at European level. And this is an important overall objective that we, from the European Commission, we are committed to, and so is the Europeana initiative. The data space for cultural heritage is leading the other data spaces as a model of standardization, both at technical and legal levels, as a model of governance with the triangle of member states, European Commission, and the Europeana initiative, as a model for organizing events, vibrant events such as the Europeana conference, and for bringing such an enthusiastic, multidisciplinary community that has been working closely together and which has highly committed network leaders. And together, with the other new initiatives who have joined the community, such as the Cloud Initiative, we can lay strong foundations for the long-term digital access and preservation under the leadership and experience of the data space for cultural heritage. Maria Skłodowska-Curie also believed in collaborative innovation and cross-disciplinary engagement. She worked hard in making scientific knowledge accessible with a huge effort on education and outreach. This mirrors and is reflected in our own efforts in digitizing our cultural heritage so that it can be reused now and later by us and by future generations. And this will allow us to leverage 3D digitization, to name, an important technology, as well as other advanced technologies such as AI and extended reality technologies, to enable new immersive applications and experiences. Last year was an important year, marking the culmination of the TwinIt 3D campaign for Europe's culture, which was organized together with the 3 presidencies. We had 37 models submitted by 27 member states, showcasing the diversity and richness of Europe's cultural heritage and our collective capacity for 3D digitization. Extraordinary models such as the Church of St. Martin in Opatov, such as the Apollo Temple in Greece, such as the Resting Hercules in Naples. We had magnificent examples of our shared heritage and identity. The campaign created a real momentum across Europe, thanks to the engagement of all of you. And it brought to the fore the critical importance of digitizing our heritage, especially heritage at risk. The world since last year is no safer, and we cannot lower our efforts. We must accelerate the digitization of our monuments and sites and artifacts, and we must accelerate their preservation. This is why I am thrilled to announce that we are launching today, here in this conference, the TwinIt Part 2 campaign, together with the Polish, the Danish, and the Cypriot presidencies. We will take this campaign to the next level, building on the success of Part 2. We are today inviting all member states to submit high-quality models of assets that belong to at least one of the categories that was part of the first campaign, that is, either heritage at risk or one of the most visited heritage, or belonging to a category with low levels of digitization. This time, the submission will focus, one, on a clear focus on the intended use of the digital twins of the monuments and sites and artifacts, and 2, on the enrichment with additional data such as documentation, metadata, paradata, contextualization, and 2D. To the community here, I warmly and strongly invite you to join the campaign like you did last time. I count on your enthusiasm and expertise. And this brings me to my concluding remarks. Marie Skłodowska-Curie was, of course, an extraordinary woman in many ways, who seldom worked alone, perhaps only when everybody else was tired, but that was not her objective. Like her, we have to work together, because together we can be united, and because united, we are stronger. That has been and will always certainly be one of the key values of the European Union. 80 years ago, our founding fathers built the Union based in industry and trade, with the belief that they would be more worthwhile than war. Personally, I believe that anything is more worthwhile than war. You can call me a fool. As President von der Leyen said some weeks ago, we are not only Italian, French, or German, not only Portuguese or Polish, we are European. Our empathy and solidarity, our culture, that is what makes us proud Europeans. More than ever, in this rapidly changing, shifting, conflicting, destabilizing world, we can be inspired by all the great women and men who came before us and learn from them, but also from each of us here and online. Thank you to our wonderful hosts. Polish hospitality has always been great. I experienced it 30 years ago when I first came here as a student on a short exchange program, and that hospitality is as warm as it was then. It's really heartwarming and touching. So thank you very, very much. And thank you to all of you for listening to me, and have a great conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rehana, for those inspiring words. Very excited to hear that TwinIt campaign part 2 has now been announced. If you would like to learn more about that, I'm sure you will hear a bit more throughout the rest of the conference. But later on Europeana Pro, you will be able to find more information about this. In this spirit, I'd like to continue the Polish hospitality that Rehana highlighted by welcoming on stage the director of the National Institute of Cultural Heritage, Marlena Happach, who will also say a few welcoming words. Marlena.
It is a great pleasure, a great honor to speak to you today at the Europeana conference as a special event that brings together so many heritage professionals who share a common goal to preserve, protect and reuse Europe's cultural heritage through the power of digital technology. At the National Institute of Cultural Heritage, we have been researching, documenting and preserving heritage for over 6 decades. But today I would like to share with you our efforts to shape the future, a digital future that is already unfolding. For over 20 years, our experts, now working within a dedicated digitization department, have been using cutting-edge technologies to document historic monuments. Laser scanning, photogrammetry, gigapixel imaging, these are our tools for understanding heritage in a greater depth and detail. We also serve as a Poland's official center of competence in the field of cultural heritage digitization. That means that we are not only practitioners, but also standard setters. We define methodologies, support conservation process, and we promote good practices across the sector. One of our key public-facing initiatives is the portal zabytek.pl, literally monument.pl, an open access platform where everyone can explore all registered heritage sites in Poland. Through point clouds, 3D models and visual documentation, we offer a new way of seeing and engaging with heritage. At the core of our mission lies one belief: heritage does not belong only to the past or to us. It's a resource we share with future generations. Through digital means, we communicate with that future. Our next 2 days, we will have many inspiring presentations about actions and projects that look boldly into the future. Thank you for your efforts to create a digital space for our shared heritage. Together, we are building a digital bridge from past to present, from preservation to participation. Thank you very much.
Lovely, thank you, Marlena. From presentation to participation, I really loved those last words. To round off our round of welcomes, we have none other than the director of the museum you are currently sitting in. He has been working here for more than a decade. Since 2012, he has, since 2020, been the director of the Polish Museum. I would very much like to welcome to stage Zygmunt Stępiński.
Welcome in POLIN Museum. I'm almost 80 years old, but I love new technologies. A few days ago, I asked artificial intelligence which Jewish museum is the best in the world. I've got an answer in 3 seconds that the best is a Holocaust Memorial in Washington, D.C., but then there was a correction. The Holocaust Memorial is a Holocaust Memorial Museum. So the best Jewish museum in the world is POLIN. So welcome to POLIN. I think that I will start with cybersecurity policies, which is very important for POLIN Museum and I think for most of us. Cultural institutions are increasingly falling victims to the cyber attacks. They risk losing their website, proceed collection, and their digital copies, and the knowledge portals they have developed. Hate speech is a separate issue, using the internet basically without repercussion and often targeting national, religious, ethnic, or sexual and gender minorities. At the POLIN Museum, we are aware of the scale of this problem, and we are actively counterattacking it, and we are adapting appropriate technologies, safeguards, routinely training our employees, and moderating discussion taking place on our social media and live meeting. At the same time, we see great potential in the development of online technologies. We are witnessing a digital transformation in the cultural heritage sector. One of the themes of the conference is using artificial intelligence to develop research and cultural heritage, improve the availability of digital collection, and reconstruct historical artifacts. Not a day goes by in our museum that we doesn't discuss how to reasonably and safely use AI in education, processing of collection, for instance, of the interview with a witness of history, and in activities aimed in disseminating reliable knowledge about Polish Jews. Several presentations at the conference will discuss the protection of cultural heritage from war and climate-related threats. I hope that this event will give you an opportunity to exchange knowledge on available technological solutions, including how to safely store the information on cultural heritage and its digital representation. I also hope that the conference will help forge a new institutional partnership and open the way for further development of Europeana, which is in Europe's largest online project aggregating knowledge and cultural heritage. As a final note, I would like to invite you to explore POLIN Museum, especially our core exhibition, which takes you on a fascinating journey through the 1,000 years of Jewish presence in Polish lands and the culture developed by the local Jews. Our museum is located in a very special place. The quarter which existed here before the war was home to the second largest Jewish community in the world after New York. That's very important. The Holocaust, devised by Nazi Germany, brutally cut short the legacy and the numerous memorial sites and scattered around the building, most prominently the monument to the ghetto heroes remind us that this is where racism, xenophobia, and nationalism have led to the great crime and most abject moral failure in a history of humanity. The museum uses the Polish Jews' dramatic history as a springboard for discussing the changes of the modern era. The memory of history is particularly important today, as we are watching rapid resurgence of anti-Semitism in Poland, Europe, and United States. We are facing increasing use of violent language and the rise of attitudes and acts motivated by hatred toward another human being due to their background, the color of skin, their religion, their sexual orientation. On the other side, out of our burden, Russia have waged an aggressive, brutal war against Ukrainian neighbors. We were petrified at the news of Hamas attacking innocent residents of Israel, murdering and kidnapping many of them, including some collaborators of our museum. But at the same time, we can't turn a blind eye to the death and suffering of civilians in the Gaza Strip, and we are praying for the lasting peace in the entire region. This is the opinion of the Pole, the Jew, and the director of this museum. In this context, the mission of the museum and bringing it to life are the particular importance today. We are protecting and restoring the memory of the history of Polish Jews and counterattacking any manifestation of anti-Semitism, discrimination, and social exclusion. I would like to cordially invite you to join us in fulfilling this mission. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Director Stępiński, for those strong and very important words. I think this was a very good way to close out our welcome. I know we are keeping you from the break, but more importantly, we have some other fascinating speakers to really set the scene for you. What does this protect, preserve, reuse mean, and what does this connect to the data space with? How do we scale up the data space, which we have worked on for a few years already? To help set this stage for you, we have none other than Verwayen. He's the director of Europeana Foundation. Kerstin Arnold, she is the chair of the Europeana Aggregators Forum, and Sofie Taes, she is the chair of the Europeana Network Association. The trifecta is here, and let's welcome them to the stage. Groen.
Thank you very much, Jolan. You hear me okay? Good. Good.
No.
No sound? Hello, hello. Ah, that's better, right? Yeah, good, good, good. Welcome, everyone. It's really great to be back here. I think you're absolutely right. The Polish hospitality is really heartwarming. I'd like to first thank the Undersecretary of State, Mr. Rogowski. It was really great that we're operating here under the Polish presidency. I think that that really gives us some extra weight to the kinds of things that we're doing here. Marlena, Happach, thank you very much, and congratulations. This is your first year as a director of the Institute, so brilliant. Mr. Stępiński, thank you very much for hosting us here in this wonderful building. This was indeed, it's a memorable place, and it's really good to be in such a place with real meaning. Volman, of course, and Rehana, Schwinninger-Ladak, we're really grateful to the European Commission, as always, for the past 18 years. You've been such a strong supporter of all the work that we're doing here, and it's great to have you. So, let's see if we can get the slides on stage. Thank you. So, today you're getting all three of us in one go. I'm the director of the Europeana Foundation. We have Sofie Taes, who is the chair of the Europeana Network Association. And over there, Kerstin Arnold, who's the chair of the Europeana Aggregators Forum. And we're doing this because Europeana is a really rich place. It's not just an organization in a traditional sense. We really see ourselves as a networked organization, a movement perhaps even, because we all feel united in our big ambition to democratize access to cultural heritage data. We don't take this lightly, this word democratize. It's not just about, putting things on the web and, see what happens. We're really serious about this. We feel that cultural heritage data is really something that belongs to all of us, and everyone should have access to it. And not only that, there's an element, a core element of trust in here. We need to make sure that people know what they can do with the data, what the provenance of that data is, and increasingly, this is one of the key assets that I think our movement, that you are all part of, can really help establish. So today, thank you. Thank you, Mike, thank you. There's enthusiasm in the room, that's really great. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take you a bird's eye view of the kinds of things we're doing to accelerate this ambition, doing that through the data space, through all the collaborative work that we're doing today. And first, we're going to hand over to Kerstin to say a few words about Poland.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think we're going to keep the technical team on their toes while we are switching between the microphones. So we already heard earlier that Poland is one of the 10 biggest content providers to Europeana at the moment. It's 3.6 million digital objects in total from around 80 institutions, and already mentioned earlier by Undersecretary Rogowski. This is all thanks to the Polish national aggregator at the Federation of Digital Libraries, run by the colleagues at the Poznan Supercomputing and Networking Center, who actually hosted the Aggregators Forum earlier this year. So it's kind of nice to be back in Poland with the second run, so to say. Thank you very much, everyone, for hosting us. But numbers are only part of the story that we want to tell, and I'm going to come back to the Collegiate Church in Opatów, which already was mentioned by Rehana earlier, and you will hopefully see on the screen in a moment the 3D model that was part of the TwinIt campaign and that was created as part of this big campaign, and we know that this campaign will continue as the wheel is turning, continuing to turn. So I'm sure it will come up at some moment. But while this is loading, I maybe can already kind of give those of you here joining us in the POLIN Museum a little bit of a sneak peek, because we do have a little surprise for you at the Europeana booth. So when you come by at the during the lunch breaks, during the coffee breaks, you actually will get a little possibility to take the church with you. So don't miss out on that. And we are back to the main slide. So yeah, digital. I mean, we all know how it is. So yeah. Maybe just coming back to the great hospitality, the organization that we have with Poland. As we see, we are here as part of the EU presidency, so that also always gives us possibilities to engage more with specific partners, with specific member states. One of the things that we are currently doing as part of this first half year of 2025 was looking into the improvement of the search experience on Europeana.eu when you are doing this in Polish. So this is one of the examples that we've done. And of course, the other thing is all the work around the second TwinIt campaign, which was launched earlier today, and where the colleagues, and there it is, you can see the church now in its full glory. Spinning around, and that's all thanks to TwinIt and thanks to this campaign that we will continue. And with this, I'm going to hand over to Sofie for the next part of the presentation.
Thank you, Kerstin. Now, dear colleagues, my line was going to be, doesn't this tickle your taste buds? Please say yes. Thank you. Indeed, don't miss your opportunity to get your little slice of what we see as the future possibilities for the data space. So come and visit us at one of the booths here in the conference hall. But let's think also a bit bigger about opportunities for the data space. Let's stop for a minute to consider it just another project. Let's really try to reimagine, to redesign, to co-invent new ways for us to share our data, to work with data, to use data, and to grow the value of cultural heritage data. We can have this big image in front of us. It's already emerging. The data space is coming to life as we speak. But the motto is already done. We have a motto, and the motto is access and reuse. And what does that mean? That we want as many different types of data available as possible, for as many people as possible, in a very open, transparent way. And why do we want that? Because we want people to create fun stuff like that postcard. We need all of those activities to take place in a place of trust, of provenance, in all transparency about who is using which data, what are they doing with it, what are the tools and the services provided here doing for me exactly. Now, that was a very big picture. Let me now make it a little bit smaller. I chose for you three personas, three user scenarios, if you like, in which you might recognize something of your daily practices. First persona is someone who has data, so you have a collection. What will the data space do for you? It will allow you to reach many more audiences than you are reaching right here and right now. You'll be able to share your data with educators, researchers, artists, creative practitioners, creative industries, and so on. You'll do that in an environment that is really trustworthy, that is as open as possible, and that is multilingual. And in that way, you will reflect the true richness of your collection, of your institution, of your city, of your country. Second scenario, you have a unique expertise, or you are looking for a unique expertise. Well, again, the data space is the place to be. This is where you can train, where you can upskill, where you can find anything you need to be active in the cultural heritage realm, whether that's information on copyrights, communication skills, the buzzwords like 3D and AI. The data space is where you want to tap into. Third user scenario, you're a people's person. Well, as a chair of the Europeana Network Association, I can say with a hand on my heart that this is the ecosystem where you want to be. This is a community of communities, and I will come back later to the 7 thematic communities that we have within the Network Association. But this is where you meet peers, where you exchange real-life practices and examples, and where you work on challenges, on problems together. So, this data space sounds great, doesn't it? But how does it fly? How is it gonna work? Well, it's gonna fly with Europeana behind the steering wheel. You know Europeana, as Harry called it, as a movement for open, trusted, democratic heritage data. Well, today, the flagship project run by Europeana, that is the data space. And this means Europeana is in charge of daily operations, but also in co-designing that future strategy of what this space could be like, how it could function. All, of course, aligned with the values that we hold so dear since the very beginning of the initiative. And I think, Harry, this was my ping-pong act towards you, to maybe take us back in time, a couple of years.
Yeah, thank you. I think the question we get most at the moment is, what's the difference between Europeana and the data space? Took us a while to figure that out ourselves, and I think it's really good to take you through very quickly sort of the evolution of Europeana as we evolved into a data space. So you may remember 18 years ago, Europeana was started, actually by a number of heads of state, including the then President Alexander Kwaśniewski from Poland, who initiated a letter to the European Commission saying, cultural heritage is way too important for us to just hand over to privately held companies. We should own that space. This is something that we need to do ourselves. And then, with the prevailing technology available at the time, we developed a portal. And the portal allowed people to find data. The difficulty, the challenge was that museums, libraries, and archives didn't have interoperable metadata at the time, right? They all had different data models. So we needed to find a model that worked for all of us so that we could have one single interface to find the data. That was the original challenge at birth of Europeana. But then, of course, things moved on. The internet moved on, the expectations moved on. So by the 2010s, just looking at cultural heritage data wasn't what users really wanted anymore from a service like ours. Right? People wanted to be able to share that material. You wanted to be able to present yourself on the web. Maybe you wanted to even remix that material to do some interesting, cool new things with it. That required a different set of technologies. We invested into APIs, the underlying technologies that enable the website, but also allows developers to tap right into the data set and do interesting things with it themselves. This required us to be very specific about the kind of things we would allow you to do with the data. This is where the licensing framework became really important. We now have 14 licenses that any institutions can use to mark on their data what they think other people are allowed to do with it. And that was a very critical component to the kinds of things that we hold dear. If we do that, then the people who are using the data can really trust what they can do with it. So that brings us to the 2020s. We're now evolving into what we call a data space, right? Conceptually, the data space technologies and the frameworks that are required for it are slightly different from platforms. The main conceptual difference being that in platforms you bring all the data together into a single space. In data spaces, technologies and frameworks, we allow people who have needs and wants for data to get directly in touch with the people who have that data. This is called the sovereignty, the autonomy of the data providers will be secured here. The important thing for us is not the conceptual discussion. We've had plenty of those. I think the important part for us is that data spaces will allow us to do the kinds of things that we want to do anyway, democratize access to data even better than we were able to do with just a portal or a platform. So in the coming years, what you will see from us is that we'll run these systems in parallel. We'll still have a nice portal where your data will be visible multilingually in different shapes and forms. We'll allow people to use that data if they conform to the rules of engagement that we put in place. And we start developing proofs of concept of peer-to-peer exchange of data between people who want data to people who have data. And the key reason for this is that the user needs are again changing. On the top here, you'll see AI. AI is also a user of data, as you all know. We'll come back to this in a minute. But this will also require different kinds of data to be made available. It won't just be metadata with a link to an original. Full text is also perhaps needed, or full text images and content. All of that will be bundled together into the trusted governance model. We think our key single asset will still be trust. Also, when we talk about things related to AI, trust is really the asset that we as a community of stewards of our cultural heritage have to offer to the world. So I'm going to give you one quick example of the kinds of things that we'll be able to do in the data space better than we were able to do before, because we're now partnering up with all the major initiatives who have something to do in this area, including Time Machine and also the Collaborative Cloud for Cultural Heritage. Those are the partners that we need to team up with in order to really deliver on the promise that I showed you here before. So what you see in front of you here is a fairly typical example of the kind of data that we have in the Europeana and in the data space. Postcards. We have tens of thousands of them, all digitized, but often with very poor metadata quality. There's not a lot of precision in date and space and geolocation, for example, which is something that more and more use cases require of this data. So how do we do that? So here we partner up with the team in Lausanne from the Time Machine organization, who've developed an AI pipeline, and this does work, where there are three sets of metadata verification. First, AI checks whether the data that we provide on the card is actually accurate. It then does image feature recognition and analysis to get more specific data on what you see on the postcard. So for example, it locates this on St. Mark's Place in Venice, and it also estimates this is probably from the 1920s because of the sepia coloring in the picture. It then does an image reverse check on databases with very similar images, which now puts this very nice postcard with much more precision on a map in Venice. What's cool about this is that Time Machine has not only done that, they've developed this pipeline, but they've also developed what they call a Time Machine Atlas, which now puts that data also on real-life satellite images of Venice, putting the image right on the right spot together with other images. You can click on it, and then you can go back to it, and in this interface you can also go back to source, which brings you back to the data space. Now, I think it's not difficult to imagine the kinds of things that are now possible, right? In tourism, you may be able to use that on your app if you walk down the streets of Venice or Dresden or London or wherever. And what it gives the data space and also the data providers is that enriched data that you may also be able to use in other applications. So to me, this is one of the great examples of where collaboration puts us in a much better space, and together we're doing the things that are really needed and required from us. And that's exactly what we're also going to be doing together with our partners from ECHOS in the collaborative cloud effort, which caters to heritage scientists in particular. We'll hear more from that, Vania, later on. Okay, so that's a great example. You've heard a lot about our ambitions and how we see the data space becoming this much richer space. And Kerstin, you're now going to tell us what's a sneak peek of what's coming up in the summer.
Yeah, thank you very much. So you're going to see a preview of the new data space website, which will be launched in summer this year. And this will essentially be how do people get to the nice example that Harry just showed you. And there will be the general introduction, of course, giving you a better understanding of what the data space is, who the partners are, who is stewarding the data space, which projects are involved, because there's not only the data space project itself, but we also have the supporting projects. We'll have events like today, and of course we have data, and that looks into not only the data on Europeana.eu, but also on all the accredited aggregators. We have tools, we have training, and the 3 personas that Sofie mentioned earlier hopefully will all find their way to go into the data space via this new website. And that's the big takeaways: support, increase, and make available and democratize.
Good. So that's coming up this summer. Yep. I really like this little animation there, by the way.
That's your thing.
Yeah.
So thank you, Kerstin. You talked us all the way through to the summer. But can I take it back and pause in the here and now? Because you might be wondering, okay, we've been discussing this data space for a while. We're back here together to explore this topic jointly. Why is that so important? What's at stake at this very point in time? Well, I'll tell you what is at stake. It's our digital world, a world that really holds the potential to connect society, to bind society more than ever. But in reality, we see that it's turning quite divisive. Online platforms, often they are no more than echo chambers where people go and find, hear and read the exact same views that they already have. Their views get amplified and the extreme opinions become further and further apart. There are a few tech giants that are really in control of what it is that we get to see, that we get to experience, while citizens like you and I often remain totally silenced and unheard. You can imagine that also misinformation that spreads rapidly doesn't help to connect and bind us closer together, especially in times like these, when we need all the resilience that we can jointly get. So on the one hand, I'm really sorry to be painting a quite dark and concerning picture of our digital reality, but my message here is not to recline and to surrender to the situation. My message is to tell you that this is a time for action, and this is exactly what we need to do in the days that we spend here together in the POLIN Museum. We should dream up a data space that really operates, leverages the power of cultural heritage as a public good, as one of the treasures that we all share. So if I can ask you, just let go of the mundane for just a few seconds and dream together with me. A digital world where no targeted ads are coming to find you 24/7, or where you are bound to whatever addictive engagement somebody has concocted. Let's think of a digital world where people like you and me decide ourselves what happens with our data, how it can be used and how not. A digital world that is not operated by a happy few corporate stakeholders, but that is really operating according to distributed, decentralized model. A digital world that buzzes with excitement and with news and with discoveries and not with disinformation. In other words, a digital world that only unites and doesn't divide us. That, I think, would be a nice dream to have. And that takes me back to the present, because the present is a turning point. Europe is at a turning point. The question is no longer if technologies are going to shape our future. The question is who's going to do it, when and how. Did you know that Europe's digital stack for 80% consists of digital stuff coming outside of Europe? If you combine this with the tensions, the political tensions that we live in at the present, as well as this reality of cyber crimes, cyber attacks increasingly happening all around us, then you know that safeguarding our digital independence is something we need to take care of right here. It's urgent. We need, therefore, a strong European data infrastructure that is built on the democratic values that we hold so dearly. And if you then ask me, how will that data work for societal cohesion? How will it go to work for Europe's culture? Then I would say, first, take a step back, look at cultural heritage data, and please realize that it's not just data. This is data that means something, that expresses something about our cultural identity, both in the past and in the present. And you could be joined by about 90% of European citizens that truly are convinced that cultural heritage brings people closer together and gives them a sense of belonging. And this is why our days here in the POLIN Museum and our work every day matter. It's not a project, it's not a technical thing. This is all about values that we share, independence that we must safeguard, and a society that we need to pull and to keep together. Kerstin, I believe that's my cue to go back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I've seen the signs being held up to us in terms of timing. So I think we're going to try kind of condensing the remaining things into a shorter story. So all the things that Sofie just mentioned, how are we going to tackle them? We have identified 3 priorities, and I'm going to start with the first one, which is infrastructure and data. Because we are a data space, so data is our core activity. And we already mentioned that we're going to diversify the data, so we're going to look into different types of data, 3D being one new type that we are looking at, but also other types that might not currently be surfaced on Europeana.eu as the main kind of interface that we have. But we are also looking into decentralizing things. So we are looking into the possibility of leaving the data where it is, so leaving the data at the source and allowing anyone via the data space to access that data. So that also means that the data flow will be more multi-directional than it currently is, from the institution to an aggregator, to a user, maybe back to the institution, maybe back to another institution. And this also means that this is not only about the data, but it's also about connecting the people behind the data. And with this, the trust aspect comes in again. So this is certainly something that we want to emphasize and continue doing, allowing more people to contribute to this data space, to this dream that Sofie just so nicely painted. And in terms of the aggregators who I am representing today here on the stage, this also means that we will become more and more the expert hubs around all of these processing, connectors, enablers, and not just the pipelines through which the data flows in one way. And with this, I'm going to just ping it quickly back to Harry for the second priority.
Yeah, thank you. So all this richness of data, that's great. The idea of this is, of course, that people see it and use it. So our second priority is both access and reuse. I put this quote up here because I think it's something we don't perhaps realize sufficiently. You know, why do you want, is there really a demand for the kinds of things we're doing, right? We're very gung-ho about all this. Are there really people using this? So these are the kinds of things we very often hear back from, in this case, someone who won the Historical Picture Researcher of the Year 2017. These are not big companies, they're often small companies or individuals. And the kinds of things they're happy about is that, on the one hand, this is the umbrella website where you can see the kind of data, not in isolation, but on a pan-European scale. And the second thing is, it's really important to have the transparency of where the data is coming from. And I trust Europeana. So these are the kinds of things that we need to keep in mind when we start building technologies and thinking about use and reuse. We're going to keep the portal, as I said, as our shop window. That is a really important feature. We will not dismiss that, but I think the real reuse will come from elsewhere. And we're already seeing some really interesting examples. I'll mention two very quickly. We're currently trying to see how we can get more of a foothold in sustainable tourism. How can we help sustainable tourism through cultural heritage? And we're developing, for example, walking tours. This one here in Amsterdam. We also have one live in Dublin and one in London. And this will help people who normally only go to Dam Square. For the ones who know Amsterdam a little well, they all flock to the same space and convoluted. We want to bring them to other parts of the city or even beyond the city where normally they wouldn't come. That's sustainable tourism. The other thing I want to mention here is this website called Unsplash. This is a very popular website used by designers very often. And interesting to know that without us doing a whole lot for it, they have downloaded a number of public domain material from us, and we're now in the top 5 most used and most watched and most downloaded partners on this website. So these are the kinds of things we should be actively looking for, and we will, because this is really where downloads and reuse really actually happens. You need to go where the users are. You can't expect them to all come to you. Which brings me to you, I think, for the last bit.
Yes, yeah. My last bit is digital transformation. So this is our third priority. We want to grow capacity within the sector, and we want to strongly pitch an offer that you can already go and explore. It's the Europeana Academy. That is an online platform where you can learn all kinds of areas of skills for digital cultural heritage, either in self-paced or instructor-led courses that all are aligned with this idea of the trainer. So we want really the knowledge to spread through the veins of the network, cover the entire sector by making knowledge really absorbed and reproducible. So go and check that out and keep your eye on the Europeana Academy, because it's going to grow nice and fat in the next couple of months and years. As for growing that network, we not only want to look at the Europeana family and the data space ecosystem as a global phenomenon, we also want to approach things from the bottom up. And this is why country groups, local championing networks are becoming so important. We currently have 3 of those country groups running. Hear it for Bulgaria, Italy, and Slovenia. Yay! Well done, guys. And let me also hear from you if any of you in the audience feels now excited and inspired to start a country group of their own. I believe we're down to call to action.
Call to action. So, last thing to conclude, we can't have a conference in 2025 and not use the, mention the word AI, I would say. It's on everyone's mind, right? Also on our minds here at Europeana. So, what I want to mention here is that we're looking into the subject from 2 angles. One is, what can AI do for us? How can it help us accelerate the kinds of things that we want to do? As Ivo Volman already said, we think that there is a huge potential here. But equally, how can culture really feed AI into and train AI to also be cultural minded? I'll mention also, and somewhere in the room, we have some representatives, eLuth or EI. They're also working on the same kind of principles. They've developed CommonPile, which is the largest training set on open source data. So those are the kinds of companies that we need to start working with more intensively. But all of this is packaged with an immense amount of dilemmas, right? We're all a little insecure about how we want to use AI. Is it safe to use ChatGPT at work? I don't know. One of the things we're confronted with very often is this, cultural heritage. Should open data just be open for anyone to scrape and maybe disproportionately advantage some already really wealthy companies? Is that really what we're after? These are the kinds of dilemmas that I think we're all facing, which is why we've launched what we call an alignment assembly culture for AI. And this will, throughout this conference, be one of the themes. You can participate here by taking the QR code. Online, you should also get a link from us. And I really encourage you to cast your vote on these kinds of dilemmas. What is your opinion? And we're, of course, not going to quote you on it. But it's really important to know what are the kinds of things that we as a sector feel completely aligned upon. But perhaps more importantly, what are the kinds of things that we struggle with? Because if we know that, we'll be able to unpack that and really come with some well thought through positions. I invite you also to join here in the auditorium at 1:30, 1:25 to be precise, if we make that. And then Johan Oman, who's sitting here in the back, will lead a session where also he will explain a lot more about this and how you can enroll yourself and participate very actively. So, with that, I think we can conclude. Calls to action. First one, Kerstin, what do we need to do?
Yeah, so thank you very much for sticking with us. We hope you will enjoy the 2 full-packed days that we have in front of us still. Take all the challenges and opportunities that we've mentioned with you in the different sessions that you're attending. And if you're an institution who wants to share their data, come see us at the European Aggregators Forum booth, which you will find outside. and yeah, just chat us up.
And if you're ready to move on from conversation to action, so if you too want to become a game changer, then please warm call to action to join the Europeana Network Association. Participants online, you should be able to do that via a link that is shared with you. And to everyone present here, you'll see this QR code everywhere, all through the conference. Please just scan it, submit a very short form, and join the place where the conversations happen, not only here during the conference, but all year long.
All right, and I think that concludes this. I think the last thing we need to say is we really hope you enjoy this conference. We put a lot of time and effort, and all of you have done that. 100 contributions. So have a ball, really enjoy yourself, and I think we're now ready, Johan, for the break, right? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The stage has been set, introductions have been done. We have, I think, thoroughly welcomed you with many, many people doing so. For the people online, I do want to mention that we're running into just a few technical difficulties with Zoom, so apologies if you've been affected by that. We hope that those get resolved as soon as possible. If you're joining us via Zoom, welcome. Very happy to have you. We have a lot of people joining us digitally and also physically, so it's a very nice and warm room here. Another reminder I would like to give you is after the lunch break, we will have some parallel sessions in different rooms. You might have seen those rooms labeled A, B, and C on the left-hand side outside of the auditorium. To register for those rooms, for those sessions, because they can fill up and be full, at the sign-in desk there are several papers where you can check if your name has been put on there. If it hasn't, then you can sign in for those sessions. So we can't ensure that everyone can join the room if you haven't signed in those papers at the registration desk. And then last reminder, you've stood in line to get your badge. We'll try not to have a line tomorrow, so please keep your badge and try not to lose it so we don't have to do this again tomorrow. And it's also your entrance ticket to the POLIN Museum, so it holds some value for sure. Moving on, we have an introduction to this session on behalf of the European Students Association for Cultural Heritage, ESACH for short. The president, Sorina Neacșu, wants to say a few words, and we'll do so digitally. Normally. I think it's here. Yes. The wheel we all know so well already.
Hello everyone, my name is Neacșu, and I'm speaking to you today on behalf of the European Students Association for Cultural Heritage, ESACH, a youth-led network working across Europe to connect, empower, and elevate young voices in the cultural heritage field. It's an honor to join you to this year's Europeana conference, Preserve, Protect, Reuse. I hope all here will continue to explore what it means to safeguard Europe's cultural richness in a digital age, rethinking not just the tools we use, but the values that underpin them. Earlier this year, ESACH, together with Hispania Nostra, co-organized the Youth Heritage Days in Albarracin, Spain, as part of the European Heritage Hub pilot project. The Europeana team was also present to lead the conversation on digital evolution. Our focus was the triple transformation, green, digital, and social, from the youth's perspective. The event brought together 60 emerging professionals, local actors, and community voices to explore how cultural heritage can actively contribute to rural revitalization and social cohesion. Through workshops and roundtables, we developed 6 strategic pathways to guide rural heritage revival, ranging from community participation and sustainable tourism to data-informed planning and digital storytelling. We then translated these into action-oriented highlights that speak not only to policy, but to practice, how to implement transformation at the local level. So why does this matter here at Europeana? because cultural data is part of a shared cultural ecosystem, and it carries the potential to reshape how we connect with heritage, whether we're in a national museum or an off-the-beaten-track village. I see the common European data space for cultural heritage not just as a repository, but as an opportunity to democratize knowledge, to amplify underrepresented voices, and to bridge generations through shared responsibility. What I hope to see on stage at these conferences are conversations that show how digital culture is being used to solve real-world problems, address inclusivity, not just in access, but in participation and authorship, and engage with digital ethics so that this transformation truly supports the public good. Today's upcoming panel, working with cultural data, Europeana, the data space and culture as a public good, is exactly the kind of discussion we need more of. From tourism and open science to infrastructure and impact, these speakers represent how diverse sectors can collaborate to ensure our digital ecosystem reflect cultural diversity, social representation, and long-term care. And that brings me to a final reflection. To be a cultural professional today is not just to preserve the past, but to navigate change responsibly. It's about balancing tradition with innovation, local realities with European strategies, and ambition with care. We are not only managing heritage anymore. So thank you for allowing us to contribute to this dialogue. We're proud to represent a generation of professionals ready to lead, collaboratively, creatively, and consciously. And finally, stay tuned. ESACH is currently undergoing a transformation, and we'll soon be back with more exciting news, opportunities, and ways to get involved. Enjoy the sessions and your time in Warsaw.
Thank you, Sorina. Okay, yes, good. So ESACH is transforming as well. Europe is transforming. The data space is transforming. We're all in a digital transformation all the time, it seems. Moving on, we will have our first panel of the day, extremely exciting panel, diving deeper in the data space, moderated by none other than Michael Peter Edson. He's the founding director of the Museum of Solutions and chair of the Europeana Advisory Board. Let's give him a warm hand.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, I'm starting my timer, my countdown timer for 55 minutes. And then we have a keynote, correct? Okay, super cool. I was this morning thinking a lot about the pioneer of Web 2.0, Tim O'Reilly, is kind of the fitting image of a thought leader in this wildly, newly emerging world of Web 2.0 and social media and just the scale of participation in digital culture. And Tim said something I was thinking about, especially during Harry's remarkable talk and the presentation from Kerstin and Sofie. He said, you know you have a platform when people start doing things with it that you didn't design it for. And I think that really is very fitting for the Europeana network. We spend a lot of time at Europeana, Harry and the team and the network, talking about this grand architecture of participation that liberates and makes certain kinds of work and activity easier for professionals and society. But when it comes right down to it, it's about unlocking the wisdom and the power and the vision of individual workers in culture. So for this session, we want to flip the script from the grand institutional view of Europeana down to people who actually roll up their sleeves and do work in this platform, and that includes all of you. We'll have a few minutes of presentations, a couple of follow-up questions of the panel, then we'll open the floor up to questions for you in the audience and online. And then meet again on stage for closing remarks from the panel. So if I can invite the panel on stage, just meander up while I'm reading your impressive bios. Panel, who will be bold enough to enter the stage first? Let me start with Martina Banoli, President of the Europeana Foundation and a Supervisory Board member of EIT Culture and Creativity. She's been Director of the Academia Caria Foundation and previously Director of the Estensi Galleries, an art historian by training, born and raised in Italy. Well, that's interesting. And I have a lot more to read, but we'll leave it at the applause line. Actually, I'm curious, how many of you here in the audience are art historians by training? I'd say a dozen. Cool. All right, welcome. Yeah, solidarity. So that's Martina. Dolores Ordóñez is the director of Any Solution, a PhD in tourism data spaces in smart destinations with cum laude. Well done. Holds a law degree by Deusto University, Spain, and she specialized in European community law and holds an executive master's in innovation with a specialization in innovative strategies, mainly in line with smart cities, tourism, smart destinations, and sustainability. Welcome. Yeah, no, super cool. Alec Tarkowski, a hometown hero, Director of Strategy of Open Future, a think tank for the digital commons. For 20 years, he's been promoting various forms of openness and the commons, and recently has been focusing on building an AI commons. Welcome, Alec. Yeah. Actually, I'm curious, speaking of hometown, how many of you are based here in Poland? About half, a third? Welcome. Thanks for welcoming us here. We're having an awesome time. And Vanya Virgili, Vanya, she is Director of Technological Research at the National Research Council of Italy, Coordinator of European Research Infrastructures for Heritage Science, ERHIS, and a partner in the European Cloud for Heritage Open Science Echoes. And she was just appointed a couple of weeks ago, very impressively, as the first Director General of ERHIS Heritage Science, and she can tell a little bit more about that during her remarks. So again, big round of applause for the panel. Thank you. I think it's both remarkable and not remarkable to have such unique skills on stage. This is part of what a platform like Europeana does, is it brings out innovative people from many fields. We could not have found these people, but they found us because of what Europeana stands for and does. We're going to start with 3-minute lightning remarks from each of the panelists. I will be a ruthless timekeeper and get in front of you or cut off your mics when we go, because we want to keep things tight and keep things moving forward. And I think we decided to start with, all right, Dolores, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Well, first of all, thank you to Europeana. Thank you, Harry and Jim, for inviting me here. So it's a great audience to be. And well, I'm here to present European Tourism Data Space. Is one of the 14 common European data spaces that was approved by the European Commission. I like it very much, the picture that you show you, because at the end, what we are creating in the European Tourism Data Space is this trust and secure framework in which data will flow. But by design, we define the different pilots, one of them related to cultural heritage, but we mentioned this part of transversality, complementarity, and generation of synergies. For us, this is fundamental. So we cannot imagine tourism as a silo, because for us it's one of the most transversal industries. Of course, any of the industries say that, but for us, tourism is part of our DNA. It fulfills our curiosity. We move, so it's related to mobility. We want to learn, creativity, and so on, so it's related to cultural heritage, to media, to languages. It's related to talent, so it's related to the skills. It's related to cities, smart cities and communities. It's related to sustainability, also with Green Deal. So for us, it's very interesting to work together with many other data spaces, to work together with many other actors. So we understand the tourism value chain as a very complex ecosystem in which public and private entities, big companies, small companies, very small companies, because in the tourism ecosystem, 95% of the business ecosystem are SMEs, and we have to help them to digitize, to learn the to another, we have to make it real. I hope I was in the 3 minutes.
You were perfect.
Okay, perfect.
And actually, you have 37 seconds left.
Okay, so
You're going to use the 37. Okay, Martina, you're next, please.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I want to take a little step back because, you know, we talk a lot about European and Europe and Europeana. While I was walking here this morning, I was thinking, you know, what is the origin of this name? And there are a lot of theories, but one theory I particularly like is that it combines the root of the two ancient Greek word, euris, which means distance, and ops, which means eye. So it's about distant gazing. And I don't know if the theory is correct or not, but I do like it. I do like it because this idea of looking far, of distant gazing, applies also to the Europeana data space. And why do I say that? I say that because the data space, it's an infrastructure that maintains a firm grasp on our past, but at the same time has the power to shape our future. It sounds like an empty slogan, but it's not. I think that the first ever goal and mission of Europeana was to have an archaeological collection. I use the word archaeological collection not because they're about archaeology, but because it maintains a firm grasp of our memory, our past. It maintains the evidence with which we can trace back our steps to the same way the archaeological remains do, to trace back our past and see what happened centuries ago or millennia ago. In the same way, Europeana, now that everybody can use our smartphone as an oracle to give us information, gives people the ability to check the sources and check whether this information is correct or not. But when I say that, I don't mean to, we talked a lot about protect and preserve to this morning, but I don't understand this, and I think at Europeana we don't understand this as a guarded, well-guarded vault, like a deep freeze. We understand that as a lively space where it is important that these sources, this material, these documents, which are also data, AI smart, what makes AI important and intelligent is the data that it feeds off. And so the data space then becomes a real reservoir for highly structured, rich, and high quality data that can feed the information we want to live in. If we, as I do, understand that AI should be of the people and for the people, then we also need to understand that it's our role to make sure that we occupy the space, that we make that data important, that we make that data count, every single one of that data, so that we can continue to confidently gaze at the distance and at the future together as a community.
Whoa, thank you. I forgot to mention that Martina is also the chair of the Europeana Supervisory Board. So this is not just some art historian on stage here. This is a person in a position of power and authority to shape the future of this movement. And if you like hanging out with these kinds of people, get involved. Alex, please.
I'd like to continue the ideas that you, Martina, shared, and start by saying that I think data space should be a collective effort to cope, get to odds, and sort of get on top of AI developments from a heritage perspective. I agree that part of it is data, reliable data, for AI development, but I think I'm, as you heard, the representative of a think tank. I've been working a lot with the cultural heritage sector, so I identify with you. I can also say I think there's more to be done than just sharing the data. This is all about reuse. Please think about it. AI development is probably the most amazing reuse case we have. I've participated in countless conversations where we tried to develop ideas for reuse, prototypes for apps, find uses, and once in a while someone was worrying that still in the end the digitized images are seen on average, let's say, half of the time. And then suddenly, and this is not a story from 2 or 3 years ago about ChatGPT, but from more like 10 years ago, these training data sets were built. There's one called YFCC100M. It was 100 million Creative Commons licensed images from Flickr created in 2014, and they just sort of took photographs of normal lives, heritage images, paintings, packaged into the dataset on their own terms. And I think this is what we need to deal with. We need to not only make resources available, but we need to have heritage professionals, heritage institutions become partners of this. I know this might sound very abstract and hard, so I think the first step is probably, as Harry mentioned, AI for culture. It's good to start asking questions, how can we use AI in our works? But I think then we need to tackle the more challenging question, how do we design content to be not just useful for AI, but to be available in a way that is suiting, and also, Harry, you talked about trust. Because another thing that AI developers often do is they take anything, and today, as you maybe know, turn it into tokens when it's text data, some other forms, when it comes to visual data that is important for Europeana, but basically you clearly stop seeing the books behind it, the paintings behind it, you just have like billions of tokens, right? And I think that's part of the challenge, and we need heritage institutions to come and make sure these tokens remain heritage, remain connected with our communities. I hope I have the 37 seconds that Dolores didn't use.
18 seconds.
Wonderful project by Spawning. They didn't just download 12 million images. They, for instance, if you look closely, chose the most aesthetic ones, building a very interesting model that determined that, but which was trained by a group of artists, very opinionated one from Berlin. Super interesting in terms of innovation that you talked about, but also you can immediately start thinking who gets to decide and why just a startup. I hope we can collaborate, the institutions can collaborate, you can collaborate with these innovators, learn from them the methods, but bring in all the knowledge and understanding of heritage. And
Thank you.
We'll talk more about it.
Yeah, okay, very good. Tanya.
So thanks, Harry, for having me. So here this roundtable, I bring the experience of heritage science, of IRIS, the European Research Infrastructure for Heritage Science, which is an intergovernmental organization based in Italy, Florence, that brings together 11 European founding countries that perform research on the materials of cultural heritage. And I think that I'm here together with you because together with the Europeana, together with the other familiar faces here in the audience, we are all involved in the new initiative called the European Cultural Heritage Cloud. Of course, we bring our diverse perspectives and competencies. Data Space is a complementary initiative to the European Cultural
Cultural Heritage Cloud. But maybe 2 words about IRIS, because otherwise it's very difficult to follow me. So what we do in IRIS, I like to say in short that in IRIS, IRIS brings science into heritage and heritage into science. Rehana mentioned this morning Marie Skłodowska-Curie action. So IRIS is the place where the humanities meet hard science. So we are a community of archaeologists, art historians, chemists. I'm a chemist, as a background, a physicist, a biologist, computer science, that all together we work all together in order to uncover the meaning and the memory behind the materials of cultural heritage. And we do all of this by bringing together the most advanced technologies in Europe, scans, microscopes, but also mobile laboratories. Maybe not everybody knows, but Marie Skłodowska-Curie invented the so-called little Curies that were a sort of the X-ray mobile units used in the World War I in order to have the X-ray radiography of soldiers. And actually in IRIS we use similar techniques in order to investigate the inner side of cultural heritage. So we do it with the mobile laboratories, with the equipment that we bring to museums, but we do also it with very advanced technologies such as accelerators, synchrotrons that are usually used to perform fundamental research in life sciences, and we use them to look inside the cultural heritage. And how all of this is related to data? But we turn, in IRIS, we turn some material traces into data and data into knowledge. And this is where our virtual research environment in IRIS, which is called IRIS DigiLab, is very important, and it is somehow the point of contact between IRIS and the European Cultural Heritage Cloud, and together with Europeana, we cannot wait for collaborate all together for bring all this knowledge into professionals and society. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. We were talking during the break and a little bit during preparation with the Europeana team, and I was not sure if at this point in the program we would be so tired of hearing about AI that we would be begging to talk about anything else, or whether we would not have heard about AI and would be wondering why it wasn't being discussed more and relevant. I think I was really, in a fascinating way, surprised and gratified to hear how Europeana is not eating the world of Europeana's work at the moment. There is an important mission to pursue important work in the field, important coalition to bring together that enables other work, and yet, I think it's pretty likely that AI will indeed eat much of the way we think about building knowledge, trust, interacting with culture in the future. So I wanted to throw it out to the panel in a way to go a little bit deeper on how you are thinking about the effect of AI in the traditional work of heritage, memory, knowledge, creating public good. Alec, you're looking at me intensely like you want to dig in on that. Do you want to start the flow?
Yes, and I'll try not to make it so intense. But you said something that I heard for the first time a year ago, and it was a very, for me, intense and shocking thought. I heard a researcher building in United States a so-called science model. So it's a research-based initiative to build a public interest model that is not just a language model, but in some ways can do scientific work. And he said that he thinks that soon AI models will be the most important form of representing culture and knowledge. Yeah. And I think that's a very bold idea that we need to discuss more, but let's assume that's the case. If that's the case, and this is where I will up sort of my hopes for the heritage sector, but also the challenge, institutions that are members of the network need to be on board, not as passive recipients that know how to use the model in their work, to get to the point I would like to see in the, let's say, coming 2 years before the next conference, a model being built in one of the European institutions. I cannot tell you precisely what you would do with it, but I think it would be very interesting. Why? I want to come back to that image which I found very interesting, which I a bit jokingly described as, can old photographs of Eiffel Tower save us from all the evils of the online world? And you're probably already joking, but I think behind the joke, there is a challenge. We know what heritage can bring. This certainty, this provenance of information, this rooting in trusted knowledge and culture. But we also feel like, okay, we have Eiffel Tower here, and here we have disinformation, fake news, advertising, broken models, and all the big platforms. But I think this is where AI becomes interesting, because this is not just about building a model that maybe presents heritage in an interesting way, or is a new interface for the data that Europeana aggregates. We find out today, I think with some surprise, that heritage is a building block for models that are much more general. That's the work that, for instance, Luther is doing. I'm looking at Sebastian, who's really doing that work. These are models that will become these general cultural technologies. And that's why I think this is so important. That's why I think it might be true. I mean, I don't know if it will be the most important way to address culture, but a very important one. And that's why I want institutions to be involved. And just very quickly, and we can come back to this, I don't think it's super hard. But maybe others.
Let's start there. It's not super hard.
Or maybe that's a question I want to ask. Is it hard?
Martina. Yes. Oh, and wait, before you speak, Martina, is there someone, if you mentioned someone in the audience, if you want to raise your hand, if you're working in an AI project and you'd be willing to talk with your peers about it during break, just raise your hand. Yeah, these guys, super. Okay, find them. Martina.
Yes, I just wanted to add something to what you said, Alex. And, you know, I get, you know, panic attack when I hear engineers saying that AI is going to be, you know, thinking and generating art. I mean, the art that's been generated by AI model at the moment is grotesque. Let me just say that as an art historian. I think that I speak the mind of many art historians. And but what I'm concerned here is that we also think that you know, these models are built and then they are, you know, done, so to speak. And I think that the same way the cultural heritage is endless and infinite, because, you know, there is more and more you can learn from it, even from a 1,000-year-old parchment. In the same way, I think that it's our job to make sure that this complexity is represented in this model, that this model need to understand, or the people behind this model need to understand that it's not a finite set of tokens that they're dealing with, but it's the infinite world of human history that they have to grapple it. And there is not enough tokens that they can concoct that is they're gonna, you know, they're gonna sort of use it all, that it keeps progressing and keeps adding to it, the same way that the iterative system of AI generates more information. So even the cultural heritage generates more information, and these two things have to go hand in hand.
Okay. I suspect, do you want to, wait, don't feel you have to, we'll come back to you.
I want, because I have the perspective of tourism and also this pragmatic approach, why we need AI. So, and I think this is very important, because sometimes we are just worried about generating data. We are just worried to generate models. We are just worried to generate a lot of algorithms, but which is the purpose for making that. And I think this is very important. When we want to generate these links between tourism and cultural heritage, how are we going to help to understand to the next generations what this heritage was about, how it was created, which was the context, which was the impact in the society, how we are going to preserve it for the future, and how our society is going to be also impregnated by this knowledge. And for us it's very important also, because in tourism we really need to understand all the challenges that cultural heritage have to be preserved. So, and this was one of the conversations that we have with Harry. So now in tourism, we are facing all these challenges with over-tourism, unbalanced tourism, massification, all the people that wants to come to Europe because Europe is the cradle of all civilizations, well, not all civilizations, but it has a huge cultural heritage that makes that tourism is going to continue growing in the next years. If you take the statistics from UN tourism, the number of tourism coming to Europe to visit our cultural heritage is going to grow in the coming years. So this is something that we are not going to be able to stop. But if we don't know which is the human pressure that any cultural heritage, any museum, any monument can support, and we don't know which are the tourism flows that are going to arrive to destinations, and we don't combine all this data, and we generate models that predict and help us to take these decisions, we are not using AI in the right way. And those are also very important and practical things in which we have to start focusing. It's very good to focus in cultural heritage and you solve your challenges. But perhaps there are challenges that have to be solved together with other sectors. And that's why I think this combination of data to generate combined models between cultural heritage and tourism are so important. So we really need that data space converge, and we share all this data to generate these models that will help us to have a better tourism, sustainable tourism, more resilient tourism, but also to preserve and protect our cultural heritage.
Okay. I want you to hand the mic to Vanya for a second. I want to follow up on something we talked about on the phone when we were preparing for this panel. This is not, all of this is not a neutral or a passive professional interest in doing the work of culture better, doing the work of tourism better, understanding the past and shaping the future in a way. This really actually, I think everyone on the stage feels this matters in society somehow. I wonder, when we talk about accentuating memory, the work of your scientific colleagues, the work in your culture, why it matters that tourism is successful, these things. There's an underlying purpose in here, a belief in the connection to society. You're a scientist. You're also a creative person and a member of a very long and deep culture. Why does any of this really matter in the big picture?
Yeah, indeed. I do remember that we mentioned this aspect of memories when we spoke together. And why this? Because we know about, I'm coming back a little bit to the ecosystem of the European Cultural Heritage Cloud, no? Because in the framework of the European Cultural Heritage Cloud, we are diverse communities. I mean, the cultural heritage environment is composed by diverse communities. We are here, for instance, so I come from the scientific domain, the research world, art historians, tourism, computer science, and we all work together, no, for the benefit of cultural heritage. But even more, no, the professionals working in heritage are very diverse. We are librarians, we are conservators, we are restorers, we are chemical scientists. And we use all these different competencies to discover memories hidden inside the materials of cultural heritage in a different way. And according to me, and also the cultural heritage, we are diverse professionals, but also the cultural heritage is very rich in its expression. And it's rich in its expression from the past, but also from the present. And they bring different meanings to the nowadays societies. So this is why I think it's very important to speak, to understand the memories that cultural heritage brings to the nowadays society. And I would like to say, I would like to add another small piece of information, because what we do in science, okay, as I said, we uncover hidden narratives, okay, inside the materials of cultural heritage. What we need and what we can do together with the Europeana is to build new narratives for today people, for today's society, maybe also with a strong impact on tourism.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's very moving to hear. I think we're going to go to questions for a bit. And I'll say, I think it's very humble and of these speakers, each one of which you can have to keynote your own conference. They have a lot to say, to yield time and be so enthusiastic to hear from you in the audience and everyone online. Yolan, do you have a question queued up for us from the world? We'll take, if you raise your hand, and there are microphones in the aisles. Thank you. Please say your name and who you represent, and keep it short.
Hi, yes, I'm Sebastian Majstorovic from LUTH.AI, and we work on open data sets. So taking the pointer from Alec, I wanted to ask you, Martina, I am a big believer that art historians should be deeply involved with curated data sets. That's one way I see to maybe make the models better. But I'm just curious, what you think the role is that art historians can play in this space. Thank you.
I think art historian can play a role in any aspects of life. No, but seriously, I do think art historians, like all people steeped in the humanities, have a huge role to play in the development of new technologies, precisely because new technology will have a huge importance in the way we're going to live our lives. And lives is not just about hard sciences or what we think hard sciences are, but it's made up of different facets of human lives and emotions and history and thought and psychology. And I think that art historians have a role to play in that, because our visual culture, which is what we study, it's a representative not just of periods in time, but of the entire culture behind the periods. And I remember a few years ago, it was very fashionable to talk about neuroaesthetic. I don't know if you've come across this term. There were the study of brain science and how the experience of art and beauty and beautiful things affected the functioning of the brain. And I remember that once with a bunch of colleagues, we were at this conference of a very famous neuropsychiatrist that was basically telling us things that art historians have discussed for 200 years. And so, there is a lot to be said for being in the same room together, because, there are things that you don't know that we should know, and there are things that we do know and take for granted that you don't know.
Wonderful. I'm off for some reason. So there we go. I want to give a shout out to you, and particularly to the members of the Commission and DG CNECT who are here. I'm from out of town. I'm from the United States, and we don't have a mechanism in the States to bring cultural professionals together like this as a habit, and with the belief that it makes us stronger and more creative and more productive and helps Europe be a peaceful, just and sustainable society. We don't have that back home. And if you've read the paper in the last few days, weeks, months, it's not going so well for us. So I want to thank you for spending that money to do that, because I do think it makes the world stronger and safer and more connected. Do we have another question from the audience? Yes, we do. And please say your name and your organization.
Hello, Mariana Marcucci from Italy. Digital Invasions is the name of my organization.
It's good to see you. I've followed you online forever.
Oh, okay.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. In Italy, we have a say. We say, I'm going to be the lawyer of the devil. I'm sorry.
The lawyer of
the lawyer of the devil. So
okay.
I'm just provoking.
Okay.
I've worked in the tourism industry for several years, and then I cheated for cultural heritage sector. My question is very confused, so forgive me. On one hand, the European Union says that cultural tourism is the 40% of the total. On the other hand, we have several reports that say that cultural tourism is just 8%, 10% of the total. So people who travel only for cultural, purposes. We have social media that are leading the way people are visiting places, on one end. So my question is for Mrs. Ordóñez, but also for Martina Bagnoli as director of the Galleria Estensi. So on one end, we have the majority of people traveling for being there, okay, done that, okay? So how do you think the tourism data space could play like a real role in inverting, this trend of visiting just to take selfies or, being there, done that? I know I'm the lawyer of the devil, as I said. And as let's say, a user of the data space, both for cultural heritage and tourism data space, the Galleria Estensi, how can we play really a role in not avoiding people who want to travel for cultural heritage, being in a museums where the crowd, is invading the museum only to take selfies or whatever. There are many people who want to travel for cultural heritage purposes. I'm finishing, sorry.
Yeah.
So, it's just, I just want to know if we can, in some ways, help people travel for, to enjoy, actually, and not just to be in San Marco Square and then ignoring all the rest of Venice, just to, mention Italy. Did I mention Italy a lot enough? Yeah, I'm Italian.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because this morning during breakfast with Ninke, we have this conversation. So I'm from Mallorca, so I know what is mass tourism, over tourism, unbalanced tourism, and all these things. We don't have data. So we have a lot of statistics, but we don't have real data. And this is the first thing, and this is why data space is so important. So we really need to start having data. And then we have to have quality data to be able to measure. So we are here today, what we are today. This is mass tourism. We are in a museum, it's cultural tourism, but some people is from here, they are residents, so they are making tourism or they are just visiting here because they are in a conference. So when we analyze all the people that are here, probably in the survey, each of us will have a different answer. So, and this is important because this is part of the statistics. And that's why we are also working with Eurostat. So we really need to know where this data come from. We really need to have the tools to analyze this data to take proper decisions. And then at the level of the destinations, we really need to start taking good decisions. And if we have to start putting the limitations, we have to do it. And this is also one of the discussions that we are having now, because the human pressure on a territory, it's something that is not an objective number, because it depends on the perception of the people. The people from one country can consider that having 500 people by a square meter is too much, but then we go to another countries and they say, wow, this is so few. So we have to combine perceptions with reality, and then what is the possibilities that the territories have. With some cultural heritage, some limits have started to be put. So there are some archaeological excavations, caves, and so on, that they say, okay, we have only 100 people per day to be allowed to enter in this place. How can we combine this with the willingness to all these people worldwide, because Europe is a worldwide tourism destination, for them to allow them to go? There are some initiatives in Spain, in France, in which they are generating replicas. And these replicas are being, and it was one of the examples that it was put also in the webinar we organized together, Europeana and Deploy Tour. So it was in other place that is not so visited. So we really need to start diversifying how the places are located. And this is also an important work that the destinations have to do when they are marketing. So many of the people that are in the marketing places in the destinations, they are still making the same after 50 years. They go to the same fairs, we use the same leaflets, go to the same places, and we have these 10 top places to visit. But then they forgot the other places. And then there is the perception of the concentration of people in space and time, which is not the same as massification. So we have made some heat maps, and there are some roads or streets that are crowded, but the rest of the city is not. So this is not massification. This is a bad management of tourism flows. So we really need data, because without data we cannot take these decisions. And we really need to have people trained to analyze this data and to take the decision based on this data. So that's why we really need to work together, public and private entities.
I heard Martina and then Alec, but I heard a real quote from you: "We have statistics, but not data." That's pretty intense. That's a keeper.
And I want to add to that by saying that it's also a matter not just of marketing the places, but talking about experience, okay? There is a show of Caravaggio in Rome at the moment, and you know, for certain people it's fantastic to be able to see the Caravaggio show if you get tickets. For other people, such as myself, it's a terrible experience, because you go in and you can't see the paintings because there are 125 people in front of you. And so, you know, I spent there about 15 minutes and then I walked out because it wasn't worth my time. So it depends on what kind of experience you're looking for. And I think we need to talk more about not just the famous place like the Alhambra or the Uffizi or, you know, the Rijksmuseum, and talk about what kind of experience you're looking for, because for every given country in Europe there are so many things to see. And I have plenty of people that ask me for, you know, I'm gonna be in August in Florence, where should I go and see? And my heart sinks, you know, because it's gonna be a horrible experience. But you're always able to find little things that people ignore. So I think that there's two things: the data and the value that you want to bring to the visit are important.
I want to say a bit about the little things and how that connects with data space, because I really like what you said. It made me think cultural experience cannot be driven by algorithms and be viral. I recently went on a family trip, and typical experience, for instance, my teenage daughter picks a cafe, we go there and there are 30 people in a line to get a cappuccino from that specific cafe, obviously because it's probably on Instagram. We didn't stand in that line. I'm kind of data-driven mind, so I spend a lot of time on the app looking what has 5 stars or 4.5, and you do that. And then we arrived in a place where there was a map made by local people, right? It was advertised, like, buy this map, you support the local committee and we'll tell you what's cool in this area. And we landed in a restaurant that was not on the digital map. And okay, but I don't want this to be a story that it's nice to have paper maps. It is nice. But again, I see a publicly driven data space as a space that hopefully will not at some point get algorithmically driven. And that's, for me, we talk maybe not a lot, but the theme is public good. It's not just that it's a good that everyone has access to, and reuse will be at scale and millions of tokens, but it's a space where we can, for instance, have multiplicity of voices, and I hope we can recreate that experience. I would really like to see, you know, these projects which feel like the old web, like someone has a little community that recommends food in the area. There's a forum where people chat about something. We lost that a bit, and I hope we can recreate it.
I hope we can incentivize it and champion those experiments. Whoops. I want to also, before we go to an online question, Alec and his colleague Paul Keller, who's on the Europeana Advisory Board and has been instrumental in the movement for a long time, highlight a LinkedIn post from an AI researcher at Meta named Jan LeCun. I think you referred to it a little in your opening remarks, Alec. He said, basically, why don't we at Meta ingest all of the world's culture, and you can interact with it through us? And I think that is, if not the big fear, one of the big fears here is that sort of corporate, oligarchic, monopolistic model of creating an enjoyable interface for culture that wipes out the nuance, the intricacy, the humanness, the accountability, the trustedness of these institutions, this rich network of cultural heritage institutions across the room. That is the fight at the moment. And I think we have great agency. We have more agency in that fight than we believe. And I salute you again from across the pond in America. Europe is leading the way there. So we have an online question, Johan? Yes. Here, do you want to?
Mike gets yes, perfect. Yep. Thanks, really thought-provoking answers and questions so far. We have a bunch of questions online. Let's choose one that is a good one.
Let's start with one.
Actually, the one that you just asked about Facebook, Amazon. There were some questions about these big five and how they will influence our appreciation of culture. The question I do want to ask comes from Rasa from Sound and Vision. They ask, Alec, you talked about trust in your opening remark, and trust is closely connected to the idea that heritage organizations are trusted organizations. I think they want to question that notion. Is that really true? So much of the heritage in Europe is stolen, they say. So many curatorial and archival decisions contribute to colonization of knowledge and erasure of communities. And the question is, how can we acknowledge and address these trust issues when building AI systems?
Nice question.
Complex.
Yeah, so that one, all of these questions are going to go up on our big whiteboard at the advisory board, and we will wrestle with them. Does anyone have a hot take on that? You give it a try. We're doing hot takes here, but that's a great question.
It is a great question. It is a very hard question. And of course, all cultural heritage is political. It's always been political. So you cannot at one point decide to make it neutral. It will never be neutral. It will always be a site of confrontation. I think that as long as that confrontation is spoken and it's discussed, it is a good place. It's good to show it. It's good to make it trustworthy, precisely because that confrontation and that discussion is open. But I also sort of strongly believe that you cannot distrust every organization simply because they hold collections that come from places or at times in history where those discussions didn't exist.
I think, so hold on, let's get another question from the audience. Do you have another one queued up or one from the floor? I mean, I want to talk to you all afternoon, but two on the far side there. If you can both promise to ask them briefly, we'll take both of them. I've got an eye on the clock.
Great.
Hi, I'm Nicole Molly, also from the United States, representing curationists. Washington in DC in particular, which is real grim right now. But leading off of the previous question, how are you all working with Indigenous data sovereignty, particularly when it comes to cultural heritage tourism? How are you engaging these communities to not only ensure that the community members are the cultural bearers and stewards of these histories, but also that sacred sites are being protected and making the decisions of what is promoted on global sites and what is not in order to preserve these histories to the original stewards?
I want to say too, I think as an American, the ideas of indigenous cultures is a little different here in Europe than back home. Maybe I can recast the question is about giving agency to the people whose lives the data represents.
But by mandate of the European Commission, all the European data spaces have to preserve the European values. And data sovereignty is one of them. So at the end, data sovereignty means that the owner of the data have to have the control of what's going to be done with this data. So, and this is one of the mandates that we have in all data spaces, and we have to ensure that it's going to be preserved. And then what is important, and I think it haven't been mentioned this morning, is that a data space helps to share data and makes the data is going to flow within a sector and also cross-sector. But the data sharing is voluntary. So it's not compulsory to go there and to share data. You don't have to go there because you must go there and to bring your data. Even you can put a lot of conditions to share your data. What is important in data space is that you are going to have some data catalogs. You are going to see which are these data that is available there. Who's the owner, or who is the data provider, which is not always the owner. This is when we enter with the role book. It's so complex. And then they are going to put some conditions to use this data. So they can say, okay, I can share it with you if you use it for these purposes, for this time, for training these algorithms. And all this is going to be traced. So I think it's very important. That's why the data spaces are so complex. It is because it's not just to put here a data set and we are going to buy it and we are going to share it. So we are generating also this real structure, these frameworks in which we are going to generate these security and trust frameworks in which anyone that wants to share data is going to be able to go there, to onboard it, we are going to have the identity manager, and we are going to help them to share this data under some conditions. That's why also we are working a lot on governance. And it seems that it's a very easy to understand word, but when we enter in the discussions to define the governance of each data spaces, there are a lot of issues to be mentioned, and we are taking a lot of time to understand which are the needs, requirements of each data set, what we call the data product offerings, and how this data can be used, a part of all the technical stuff on data models, semantics, and so on, but also which are the legal conditions, the agreements that have to be fulfilled to share this data. So I think we are building something very important, but we'll need some more time.
Well said. Actually, you can't, because we're going to be short of time. But please ask this question. We may not answer it.
Thank you so much for your inputs, for this open discussion. I am Lorenzo Venezia. I am a PhD student. I'm studying the digital transition in cultural organization. And I was wondering, what would you suggest as, let's say, the next skill in the cultural sector job?
Whoa, great question. Let's do this. We need a whole session. And I'd be interested in your ideas. We're going to go through our closing remarks here, sort of a minute on the clock each, to use how you see fit. But I think maybe closing advice to the people here who govern, actually you're one of those people, govern this project, who are the stewards of this database and who work in culture every day. So let's start with you, Vanya. Yes, 1 minute closing remarks.
Okay, so now it's very difficult because I would like to say a lot of things about the question and everything, but maybe as a closing remarks for us working in research and in cultural heritage, it's very important to have steady political vision and investment over time, because especially in research, stop and go is very difficult. So, but we live in Europe and we are quite lucky, I mean, because we have the European Commission and also all these different long-term initiatives, they are supported by the European Commission and the member states. So I would like to say that we are quite lucky. We should continue in this way, but also with a more long-term political vision, steady investments. And an invitation for all the audience here. So you come from the professional sector, you work in museums, laboratories, archives. So what you do in your daily life is very important, it's deeply important. But as we are here, all different initiatives, please reach out us, reach out all these different initiatives, because you are not alone doing your job. We would like to serve your community, but especially we would like to do our job together with you.
Beautiful.
In Iris, stop.
Beautiful message.
With you.
That is amazing. Alec.
I think I need to clarify. I said at some point that maybe you can solve all the online problems if we have just AI models. Of course, it's not that simple, and more AI on its own will not save the world. What I rather want to say is that we need more public AI. So we need to, that's our best shot, that we need to enter this space that's driven by very big companies, by research interests that are sometimes, I think, not close to societal needs, and come with perspectives that a lot of your institutions have, working with communities, thinking about public interest, thinking about collective memory, because then we can build better tools. And I think Europe is making a big push to develop these technologies. I think engineers on their own at some point will stop. They will build great research tools, but they will not be useful for our lives. And I think that's where we need to bring in tourist experts, heritage experts, social scientists, and I hope we can start building these like bridged projects. Bridging is important.
Beautiful. Chef's kiss. Fun.
Okay, so Europe is a worldwide tourism destination. This is only going to continue growing. We really need to get together to manage it from the different perspectives. So for that, we need data. So we have the official statistics we come with this data, but we need other kind of data that comes also from the very small companies, and we have to help them, to support them, to help and to share this data. Data Spaces is a fundamental initiative. We are here to build these trust and secure frameworks, and it's very important to generate also this interoperability in order to be able that this data will flow. Without allowing that, we will not succeed in continue growing as a tourism destination.
Beautiful.
I'm going to take this opportunity to also reply to the last question, what is the most important skill set? I think the most important skill set is to get out of the taxonomic discipline field of the 19th century and think that the most important skill is to be able to work across discipline and across field. I think that knowledge in the 21st century is not by discipline, but it's by areas, and a lot of the question today and a lot what we said sort of shows exactly that. And in order to build a better future, the humanists need to be at the same table with computer science, the person that organizes the tourist flow, and the person that knows about material science, because we are going through difficult times when our heritage is in peril, but also our way of life is in perils. And to find new solutions, we need to hear different voices. So we need to work together, and it's our responsibility to do so.
Beautifully said. Last words. Thank you all. Thank you, panel. Thank you, online. And back to you, Ho. Thanks. Yeah, let's give the panel a final round of applause.
Our moderator. Let's have one more hand for our moderator, Michael. Great. I think there's a problem with my microphone here, so I'll just use the lectern for a second while we transition. If you felt like Mike was also saying that maybe we haven't talked about AI enough, or maybe actually you're already completely full up with AI, our last session and keynote of the morning will be focused on AR-powered tours for tourism using generative AI. So all of these topics, tourism, science, AI, they actually all come together in this next keynote, which I'm very happy to announce. We have with us Sofie Panzer and Stefan Marx. They are the founders of Zauber. Please give them a warm hand.
All right, yeah. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm Stefan Marx, co-founder of Zauber, which is the German term for magic, just with an AR at the end, because we are very passionate about augmenting reality for the last 6 years. And we're happy to talk today about how we think the data space can be opened up and democratized and made more personal, and also very much so to make it very immersive and experiential, because this is what we are usually about, to have education and entertainment all in one. And let's do that. Let's dive right in.
Yeah, so again, we are Anne-Sophie Panzer and Stefan Marx. We are the, let's say, the young white ones who get very creative with all these beautiful contents, data, artwork that we have in Europe. And but don't worry, we have our heart on the right place. I studied political science and history, Prussian history in Potsdam, and my co-founder Stefan Marx studied philosophy. What else could he study with this name? So and with this vision, we founded Zauber 6 years ago.
And from a communist, I turned into a capitalist. Now that we have a company. But yeah, at Zauber generally, you know, we will show you some stuff of what we did, our journey to maybe inspire and also to talk about, yeah, what we can do with all these data points. But yeah, we are a platform to make locations and places magical. That means that the users, so the audiences of our partners and customers, they go to a place, of course, like a museum or a memorial site, and then they can take out their phone or a tablet, sometimes even glasses, and then see stories that usually you would not see, right? So hidden information and, you know, secret stories and narratives that happened. Sometimes we call it time travel, but it's always cultural heritage, and we don't just want to preserve it, and this is what this is about, right? We want to make it experiential. And to do that, we think that one must move beyond the flat screen. I mean, of course, it must be more than just, you know, looking at a piece, at a place. That's what we deeply think. It must be, you know, adding things to it, or sometimes taking things away, and using the latest technologies, you know, to make it more exciting. But also, what's very important for us, it needs to be very sensible. So you cannot just throw any kind of technology on a topic and think, you know, that will work, that will make it cool. It needs to make sense. And we can see that with a lot of examples that we can show you why it was chosen to be done this way when we look at that specific theme. And our vision is really, at the end of the day, to make it immersive, right? So we want that it is fun to experience these stories, that it really is touching people, but also that it is straightforward and easy to create these experiences.
And up to now, like our name is Zauber, augmented reality. What we did a lot in the last years was immersive, and now, which will be the second part of our presentation, we're taking it even a step further because we want to personalize it. I mean, in the last panel, there was already a lot being talked about AI, and we think this is super interesting and a big chance to make all this kind of historical artwork content more interesting, and to make it fit for every person in the audience, so that everybody of you can get your own personalized experience.
Yeah, this is something that we call spatial AI, or a spatial agent, and we will show you why in a second. Now, in the first part, we would like to talk about the immersion. So when we mean immersion, for us, that oftentimes means using the technology that is called augmented reality. So adding things usually to reality via digital means. This usually means that you are looking through the camera of your phone or your tablet, because our customers, our partners, they do a lot of bring your own device experiences. And this literally, of course, means to bring data to life, because it will feel very much present. And there are a few examples that we want to show you. As a company, we also do other things like marketing activities for Coke Zero, for example, or for Nivea, but this is really actually a minor thing. And we started 6 years ago with actually the dream of showing the Berlin Wall in Berlin, in Germany, because we are born 89 and 90, and we always, you know, from East Germany, asked ourselves how actually was it back then. And yeah, this was our first project, which we will not show now, but we will show you basically how a time travel was created on a castle in West Germany. And I think it makes sense to watch that video for now. Maybe a bit louder, so you get a good view into how this felt.
Zeitreise Niederburg. is an extended reality game at Niederburg Castle in Manderscheid, Rhineland-Palatinate. Using a tablet or smartphone, visitors of all ages can open a door to the past.
Barbarossas nicht gegeben. Du hast die Mühle von den Herren von Manderscheid gepachtet. Du musst auch für den Schaden am Mühlstein aufkommen.
Aber Herr Amtmann, ich flehe euch an. Einen neuen Mühlstein können wir nicht bezahlen. Das Geld reicht gerade für die Pacht.
Unverschämtheit! Du bist zur Pachtzahlung verpflichtet.
What you see here, I mean, this is a story about medieval times. So we don't have photos from the medieval times, but we have other pieces, artifacts, and so in order to create this project, this is what Stefan meant when he said it must make sense, it must be sensible. We work together in a big consortium with historians and especially with experts, so-called castle experts. And this is a very small town in Western Germany in the Eifel region. And yeah, this castle ruin was actually turned into how it possibly could have looked like 500 years ago. For example, this was the courtyard, and we turned it into we call it ARPG, so augmented reality role play game. You could actually talk to every character, and you had to solve a riddle. In the beginning, the millstone was broken, so you had to find your way to the Lord to prove that he was responsible for buying you a new one. And
Damit kannst du den Bergfried aussperren und mein Geldbeutel rausholen.
The exploration of the castle ruins in real life is expanded and enhanced by digital
so we
content.
basically mixed
in the real environment,
virtual
players encounter
playing
fictional
and
inhabitants
the
of
real
castle
playground,
who give us
the
an
real
insight.
castle ruins, and so you had to visit real places in order to find keys, in order to solve riddles, in order to learn something about the people who lived on this castle 500 years ago. And therefore we mixed fun and learning and the ultimate goal was to climb this tower, and of course there was always like a version for older people, so we already tried to distinguish a little bit for several user groups where you could only basically read and learn a lot, and for younger, more explorative users, yeah, there was the players option, and Ginger actually existed 500 years ago, so in case you wonder, this is not made up. So this was one very cool project.
Yeah, and as you could saw in the beginning, we reconstructed the castle as it very, very, very likely looked back then, with white, paint in the outside. And this also had the very positive effect that we could offer a low barrier mode, because notoriously castles are very difficult to climb, and specifically this one. So even people that are not able to walk and climb can experience this now at the bottom, at the foot of the castle. So these kind of projects have a multitude of positive outcomes. And going to the next one is also very interesting, because this is literally using a lot of data points, specifically in West Germany, again, Westphalia.
This is actually using more than 15,000 data points. So our technology was put into an already existing app, which is called Stolpersteine WDR, stumbling stones. So these golden stones that remember people that were murdered by the Nazis, and they were put in front of houses where they have been living once. And so in some, especially in Cologne, where the WDR, the German Broadcasting Service, is located, there are, in some streets, there are more than 20 to 30 stumbling stones, and it's super hard to find them. And here we could get really good use out of the AR technology to navigate with centimeter precision the users to the exact stumbling stones, because in the beginning you always, of course, start on a 2D map, and then you get navigated there, and then you can experience photos, text, everything that still exists about the person that has been living there once. And as we have an editor, it's been used by volunteers in several cities all over North Rhine-Westphalia who are adding content that they research on their own that they put into the CMS and place in AR.
And you can already see a trope here that we will see again later, because we, in this video, really only are using historical photos of the people involved, and are kind of, placing them in the vicinity, right, where it happened. But this will be much more apparent later in another project, and you will see that it's a very simple trope, but it can be very meaningful and powerful. This was the second project we did with the memorial site concentration camp in Dachau, where we were able to show artworks.
Yeah, artwork that were mostly produced by former prisoners, sometimes during their prison, while they were there in Dachau, sometimes later, sometimes even graphic novels that were done by descendants. Thank you. So this was also the idea was to make what happened there more tangible to pupils who visit the concentration camp memorial site in hundreds every day. So.
And here, it's very common in Germany, and specifically also here. It was an important point to not make use of virtual reality, right, but augmented reality, to specifically not overpower the visitors, right? It should not be too immersive at the end of the day. It needs to be in concert and dialogue with the environment. So AR is very powerful in a positive way for that. Also here we reconstructed the barracks and placed the paintings inside, and even opened up 3D-fied paintings, all together with, of course, the concentration camp memorial and the curators. Yeah, and connected to that, we have also here the first project we did at the same place, which was focused on the day of the liberation, when the Americans liberated the camp. And exactly here, we simply displayed historical photos at the exact place where they originally have been captured. And this is, again, a very simple way, right, to express history, but very powerful, because it allows you to step into the footsteps of, in this case, Lee Miller, so the photographer, right, that joined the army on that day. Good. Right. So then we will go a bit faster. Sorry. Of course, this can also work great, in modern art museums to animate paintings, or to show, in this case, the different layers of a historical wooden door. So many different ways how to express history and hidden stories. And yeah, we can show you more if you like afterwards. But I think we should jump now to the second part of the presentation, where we want to talk about the AI and what we call the spatial AI. And this is, for us, very interesting, and we have been working on this for nearly a year. And we want to show you a bit of a pre-visualization and prototype now. Essentially, what this is about is that we want to make the experiences much more personal, so they can touch each person on their own level, meaning it can speak their language. And to give an idea, we pre-visualized a bit using, of course, a famous painting that was, I think, just mentioned before, briefly. So this would be, of course, an ideal way to experience this painting, but usually we all know that it feels more like this. People realize, oh wow, that's really small and so far away. And of course, on one hand, it could make it possible to just look at it digitally, but what we are talking about is that we want to combine AI in a way that it spatially understands the painting. So it could be a painting, it could be also a sculpture, but what we are currently building is that all data points inside this painting, for example, are understood automatically by the AI and can be, explained in a way that it really fits the audience. Meaning, it's their language, it's on their level of complexity. You can decide how long each answer should be. Of course, you can enter a dialogue. Technically, it's a real-time voice bot, so you can literally talk to the painting, and you will get more information, contextual information, as you saw, similar paintings or paintings that inspired the artist. And you can also choose, for example, who you would like to talk with. So there is the possibility to go anywhere else in the painting and then go back to the point of interest that is currently being discussed. But also you can select, so let's see that here, the type of guide. It could be an art professor, it could be a robot, or even a teenager. But of course, even the teenager, could explain it like the professor, but in her own words, So you have it like a snarky 16-year-old explaining the Mona Lisa to you, which can be a lot of fun. And it is called spatial AI, as I just said, meaning essentially the AI understands what is happening at what part in the artwork and knows all the background knowledge.
And
right.
3D models.
So kind of the vision is that everybody can have their very personalized experience, but the technology allows us still to have it still as a multiplayer experience, exchange about it. So it's not really making it, isolating, but it's more making it more sensible and personal, so everybody can, understand it on their own level, and everybody can have their personal guide. That's what we wanted to express here with these visuals. We also brought a little rap song where basically we thought about how could somebody rap about the Mona Lisa. If you would like to have a hip-hop experience when looking at the Mona Lisa, maybe we can play that back. It's in the Google Slides. I added that 10 minutes ago. If you switch, maybe you can see it. I'm not sure if that's possible. While we wait for that, our vision basically is with our company, and also actually really personal, to bring data points all over the world, and show hidden stories all over the world. This can be experiences on the street, of course, on private ground museums, in museums, but we feel that there are so many stories to tell everywhere, and you usually don't know them, and yeah, we would like to change that and make it possible that people can do that. Yeah, right. I guess that's, if you want to listen to the rap song, you can come to us later, and we can play it to you. Other than that, yeah, thank you very much for listening to the talk, and yeah, see you later.
Thank you so much. I feel bad that we can't have the rap song. I think it was, yeah, we can have it later. It was added just a bit too late, I'm afraid. But we will make sure to share it online, because I mean, I for sure want to hear it, so I'm sure that you want as well. I'm the only person standing in between you and your lunch, so I will keep it super brief. Thank you all for this morning session. Please go to lunch. We have extended it a little bit. Please be at your next session at 2 p.m. sharp. We will start at 2 p.m. and not a second later. There is several different breakout sessions, so make sure that you are signed up for the correct one. And I'll wish you a good lunch, bon appétit, and see you afterwards.